I was dead for 12 minutes. No beats, no breathing, no signs of life. But the strangest thing is that I remember everything. Not like a dream or a hallucination. It's as if I had lived another life in that short interval. It all started with absolute darkness. Then a light appeared, strong but soft. And in the middle of that light, there was someone. A man dressed in white, with eyes so full of love that I couldn't look away. He called me by name, even though he had never seen me before. And he said something that chilled me inside. "You need to go back. There's something that needs to be said. Time is running out." At that moment, I understood that I wasn't just anyone. He introduced himself as Isa, the name of Jesus in Arabic, but he spoke with an authority, with a presence that I had never felt before. Suddenly I woke up. I was in a hospital bed, doctors around, my mother crying. Everyone thought I was dead, and I have been, but now I'm back, because he sent me. And I have a message for you. My name is Yusuf, I'm 10 years old, I'm Muslim, and this is the true story of how Jesus sent me back to warn the world. That night, everything seemed too normal. I had just finished my homework and was excited about the school field trip the next day. My mother prepared rice with chicken, and the smell filled the entire house. My father, as always, was reading the Quran in the living room, and my younger sister was quietly singing some song from YouTube. It was an ordinary night in our house in Richmond, Virginia, but there was something about me that wasn't ordinary. During dinner, I felt a strange sensation, as if something was watching me, but not in a bad way. It was like a warmth in my chest, a soft, almost protective presence. I didn't say anything. I just stayed quiet, trying to understand. At night, before going to sleep, I closed my eyes and murmured my prayer as usual. But in the middle of it, I saw a light. It wasn't the light from the room nor from the street lamps. It was a light behind my eyelids, strong, white, alive. I woke up sweating with my heart racing. I looked up at the ceiling and for a moment I thought I heard someone calling me, "Yusuf," but there was no one. I went to my parents' room just to check if everything was okay. They slept soundly. I went back to my bed, covered my face, and tried to ignore it, but one sentence wouldn't come out of my head. "You will remember." The next morning everything happened very quickly, but at that moment, that last night, something inside me already knew. My life was about to change forever. I woke up with that same feeling in my chest. It was as if something was squeezing me inside, but at the same time, guiding me. The sky was gray that day, and the wind felt colder than normal for April. As I put on my sneakers and packed my backpack for the field trip, my mum looked at me a little more closely than usual. "You look pale, Yusuf. Are you sure you want to go?" I shook my head. I didn't want to miss visiting the museum with the group, but inside I knew something was different. On the way to school, the silence inside the car was heavy. My father, usually excited with the radio turned onto some Arabic station, drove in silence. My mother just looked out the window. I felt strange, like I was saying goodbye, but I didn't know what. When I arrived at school, I forced a smile. My friends called me, we laughed, we played on the bus, but there was a buzzing in the back of my mind like a distant echo calling my name. Yusuf, Yusuf. We arrived at the museum around noon. The class spread out among the science, technology, and American history exhibits. I was looking at a life-size model of a human heart, beating mechanically when I felt the first pang. It was as if my heart responded to the sound of that other one wrong beat, then another. And then everything slowed down. The voices around me began to sound distant. The floor seemed to tilt. Someone called me, but I couldn't answer. I took a step, and then I deleted it. They say I fell to the ground like a stone, that my head hit it hard, that my eyes were open, fixed on nothingness. The teacher panicked. They called the paramedics. The entire museum stopped. I, a child of just 10 years old, was lying on the cold floor, not breathing. The heart had stopped. Doctors tried to revive him. 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2, nothing. My body, small and light, was inert. They said it was a sudden cardiac arrest. Inexplicable, no history, no warning. But what no one knew is that at that exact moment, I was somewhere else. 12 minutes without vital signs. 12 minutes between this world and the next. When my eyes closed, there was no fear, no pain, just a silence, and then a presence that would change everything. When my eyes closed, the world didn't go dark. He just disappeared. There was no pain, no fear, just a silence so absolute that it seemed to scream inside me. It was as if I had been disconnected from everything that existed, the voices, the sounds, the heartbeats, even gravity. For the first time in my life, I couldn't feel my body. No weight, no hunger, no worries, just nothingness. But nothing didn't last long. Little by little, a presence began to form. It wasn't a person. It was a conscience. As if something was watching me without eyes. There was no space, no time. It was all white, but not the white of the walls or the sky. It was a white man who breathed, a white one that looked alive. And in the middle of this place that was no place, I heard my name. Not with ears. It was as if my name vibrated inside my soul. Yusuf. I felt scared for a moment, but not the fear of monsters or the dark. It was the fear of being faced with something much bigger than I could understand. Then something changed. From the white, a more intense, warmer light emerged. It was as if love itself had formed. That light approached without haste, without noise, and the closer she got, the more I felt an inexplicable peace. I wanted to go with her. I wanted to stay there forever. And it was at that moment that I saw him, a man, or at least something with human form. He wore a long white robe that shone as if it were made of stars. The face was calm, the eyes were like an ocean that held all the pain and all the love in the world at the same time. I didn't know who it was, but something in me knew. He didn't say hi or how are you, he just looked at me and said, "You're not done yet." I tried to speak, but I couldn't. My mind was confused. Finish what? I thought. He listened, even without me moving my lips. And then he said something that made me shudder. "There is a message. You have been chosen, but you need to come back." At that moment, everything began to shake. The light moved away. The heat turned to cold. The silence turned into a sharp, cutting sound. I screamed, but without a voice. My body was pulled back as if I was being ripped from that place of peace. And before it all disappeared, I heard just one more sentence, like a whisper. "They won't believe you, but say it anyway." That's when my eyes opened. The instant the light came back on, everything changed. I was no longer in that formless white space. Now there was ground beneath my feet, a ground made of something that was neither stone, nor earth, nor cloud. It was as if he was stepping in silence. Around me, a golden expanse stretched out like an eternal sunset. The air was not air, it was light, as if love itself was enveloping me. And then he appeared. He walked towards me with calm, steady steps. Tall, wrapped in a white robe that looked alive. There was no shadow beneath him. His feet touched the floor weightlessly. His hair fell softly to his shoulders, and his well-shaped beard framed a face that was at the same time serene and immensely sad. His eyes passed through me, deep browns, eyes that had seen every war, every tear, every prayer the world had ever prayed, and yet they were still filled with compassion. I couldn't speak. I just fell to my knees, not out of fear, but because my body knew that here was someone who was more than a man. He came over, reached out his hand and touched me on the shoulder. It was as if a gentle electric current ran through my body. "Get up, Yusuf," he said. His voice was firm but full of tenderness. I stood up effortlessly. I felt light, as if I no longer had any weight or age. I looked at him and asked with my mind, not my mouth, "Who are you?" And then he said with a look that seemed to contain centuries of love and pain, "I am Isa, but many know me as Jesus." My heart raced. I was Muslim. I knew the name Isa. He is mentioned in the Quran as a prophet, but what I was seeing was something different. He didn't speak like a prophet. He spoke like someone who carries eternity within him. "You have a mission, Yusuf," he said. "The world is in danger. Love has been forgotten. Faith has become division. The truth has been silenced. I need you to come back and tell them what you saw, even if they don't believe it, even if they judge you. You saw the light, and those who see it can no longer pretend they didn't see it." I wanted to stay. Everything in me wanted to stay there, but something was pulling me back. I looked at him one last time, and he smiled, a smile full of pain, but also of hope. "Go back, Yusuf. Tell them. There's still time." And then everything started to disappear. The light dissolved, his voice drifted away like an echo on the wind, and the sound of the heartbeat, mine, began to come again, like a hammer in the darkness. I was coming back, The transition back was like wading through an invisible storm. My senses were mixed, everything was spinning. The light, the heat, Issa's gaze, everything disappeared too quickly. But before being ripped out of there completely, something happened. He showed me, not with words, with visions. It was as if I were flying above the world but without a body. I saw people, millions of them, some crying alone in dark rooms, others screaming in the streets, angry, hungry, in pain. I saw children being rejected by their families. I saw wars where no one knew what they were fighting for anymore. I saw churches and mosques being closed, while hearts hardened. And then he spoke, for the last time, directly inside me. They forgot love. I felt like my chest was opening. And when he said love, I understood that it wasn't just a feeling. It was a living force, an essence. It was him. After that, images began to flash before my eyes. A child being hugged by a stranger, a man returning the bread he stole, a woman forgiving those who destroyed her life. Small acts that created light, as if each gesture of compassion illuminates the world a little more. And then I realized that was it. The mission. Go back and remind people that love still exists, that there is still time. When my eyes opened in the hospital, the first thing I did was try to sit up. The machines beeped, the doctors screamed, but I just wanted to say one sentence. He told me to go back. My mother cried, hugging my still weak body. My father looked confused, not understanding how I was still alive. But I knew, because I saw it, because he showed me. And now, I need to tell you, even if no one believes it. If you've ever felt like you received a sign, a warning, or something you can't explain, tell us in the comments. What do you believe true love is? Write it down here. Your experience can touch other people too. The sound that brought me back was a beeping, slow, repetitive, like a distant drum beat. My eyes opened with difficulty. The hospital lights were harsh, cold, but the first thing I saw wasn't the ceiling. It was my mother's face, bathed in tears. She held my hand like she was trying to stop me from escaping again. Beside her, my father, motionless with red eyes, looked at me as if he were facing something impossible. Yusuf, my son, you are back. My throat was dry, my voice cracked, but I managed to whisper, he told me to come back. It came out before I even thought, and in the next second, I felt a peace so strong that I cried, not of sadness, but of certainty. The doctors couldn't explain it. He had no vital signs for more than 10 minutes, they said. It's not common, it's a true miracle. They did exams, CT scans, electroencephalograms. They looked for sequelae, neurological damage, but everything was normal, completely normal, except for me, because inside, nothing was the same. While everyone celebrated my return as a rare event, I only thought about one thing. I need to talk. I need to count. I need to say what he showed me. And the more the days passed, the clearer the urgency within me became. I started telling my mother. She cried. He thought it was a dream. Then he tried to convince my father to listen. He looked at me seriously, in silence. This is haram, Yusuf, he said, his voice hard. You were in a coma. The brain creates images. Don't play with faith. But I wasn't kidding. I've never been so serious in my life. At school, the news spread quickly. Some students treated me as if I were a ghost. Others laughed, mocked. A teacher took me aside and said, "You saw something, I saw it too." That gave me strength. I wasn't alone, but I was the only one willing to speak out loud. The nights became difficult. Dreams, visions, phrases that echoed in my mind. You saw it. Now speak. I woke up in the middle of the night with my hands shaking. The calling didn't stop. It was as if he was still with me, somewhere in the silence. And that's when I really understood. I hadn't just been saved from death. I had been chosen for something greater. But how can you convince the world when no one wants to listen? At first, they tried to protect me. My family told me not to repeat the story, at least not outside the house. People won't understand, Yusuf. They will hurt you. But I couldn't shut up. It was as if something was pulsing inside my chest, pushing me to speak. And when I finally told everything at the mosque, it was like dropping a bomb in silence. We were sitting after the Maghrib prayer. My uncles, my father, some community leaders. I asked to speak, with a shaky but firm voice. And I did. From the moment I fell in the museum to the man in white, I spoke about what he told me, the visions, the pain in Jesus' eyes, or Isa, as we call him, and the mission I received. The silence that came after was worse than any scream. My father lowered his head, fingers intertwined, taking a deep breath. One of the older leaders stood up and said angrily, "This is kufr, blasphemy. You don't know what you are saying." Another shook his head in pity. A third looked at my father and asked, "Are you going to allow your son to spread this heresy?" My father stood up slowly, looked at me with heavy eyes, full of fear and shame. "Yusuf is just a kid. He's still confused. We'll take care of it." And he pulled me by the arm like someone pulling a child out of a fire. But I wasn't on fire. I was the fire. At home there was silence for days. My mother avoided the subject. My father barely looked at me. I felt trapped inside the truth itself, as if having seen too much was a punishment. But still I kept talking. For friends, for schoolmates, for anyone who would listen to me. I saw Jesus. That's all I said. And each time I repeated it, I felt my courage growing. The rejection, the mockery, the anger didn't matter. I knew what I had seen. And if that really was heresy, why did I feel peace every time I remembered his eyes? The community began to move away from my family. Some stopped greeting us on the street. Others said I needed spiritual treatment, but I wasn't sick. I was awake. And the more they tried to silence me, the stronger the urgency inside me became. Because the message was not about dividing. It was about uniting. But they still couldn't see. After everything I've been through, I understand one thing. No matter what anyone says, I can't keep quiet about what I saw. The message I received was not meant to be kept. It was supposed to be spread, even if it cost me everything. I began to speak more courageously. First with my schoolmates, during breaks, in the lunch line, in the hallways. Not preaching, not trying to convert anyone. I only told what I saw. The white place, the peace, the man in white. His words. They forgot love. At first they laughed at me. They called me crazy, a heretic, a lunatic. But then they started listening. A girl in my class, Sarah, came to me silently days later. She looked me in the eye and said, "I dreamed of him, just like you described." I didn't know what to say. I just held her hand, and at that moment, I knew something was happening. People started looking for me in secret. A teacher called me after class and said in a low voice, "I also had a similar experience when I was young." A neighbor who never paid me any attention stopped me in the market and murmured. His words still echo in my head. It was as if by speaking I awakened something that was already there. It wasn't about religion. It was about a forgotten truth hidden within each one. A truth that burned in silence, waiting to be ignited again. But with each person touched, also came the attacks. Someone posted a video of me talking about the experience. It went viral. Comments were divided between miracle of God and work of the devil. I received messages saying I should shut up, that I was a disgrace to Muslims, that I was being used by dark forces. The school called my parents, psychologists and psychiatrists were suggested. They said I was negatively influencing other students, but I wasn't imposing anything. Just telling you what I experienced. Just fulfilling what I promised him. That's when I understood. The message was prohibited because it was dangerous. Not for the world, but for the control that many wanted to maintain over it. Because the truth sets you free, and freeing people scares those who live in fear. Still, I continued. One by one, I spoke to whoever wanted to listen. It wasn't easy. It hurt. But every time I remembered Isa's look, his sad smile, I knew I was doing the right thing. He told me to go back. And I was still here, for a reason. When I started talking, I thought the hard part would be getting people to believe it. But I was wrong. The hardest part was dealing with those believed, and they hated it for it. The threats started discreetly, anonymous messages saying that I was shaming my faith, that hell awaited me. A man who attended our mosque looked me in the eye one day on the street and said, "You should have stayed dead." That hit me worse than any slap. My mother started to walk in fear. My father remained silent, and I stood my ground. But inside I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. At school, the atmosphere became tense. Teachers avoided my gaze. Some parents sent letters demanding my expulsion. They said I was promoting dangerous doctrines and confusing children. The management called me, and with kind words, they tried to convince me to stop telling my story. You need to think about your well-being, Yusuf. It could hurt you. But how can I ignore what he told me? How can I pretend I didn't hear the urgency in his voice? I was not chosen to be silent. And every time they tried to shut me up, I remembered, say it anyway. I started being followed on social media by fake profiles. Aggressive comments, videos calling me a liar, a possessed person, a heretic. Even a small local extremist group shared my name on forums, calling my story a threat to the Islamic faith and disguised Christian infiltration. My family had to change their number. My father finally exploded at home. He shouted. He said I was destroying everything. But when I looked into his eyes and said, "Father, I saw Isa," he was crying for us. Something in him seemed to tremble, just for a moment. Then he left, slamming the door. That night I was alone in my room, looking at the ceiling, praying. I asked God why. Why show the truth and if the world doesn't want to hear it? And inside my heart, an answer came, soft, silent. You weren't sent to convince. You were sent to testify. The mission was not easy, it never was. And now I understood why. Because the strongest light is the one that most bothers those who live in darkness. But still, I would continue. It was on a silent morning that everything began to change. I was at home tired, trying to understand if it still made sense to continue. The threats, the contempt, the fear that I saw in my mother's eyes, all of this began to weigh more than I could carry, until I received a message. It was from Sarah, my classmate at school, the same one who had dreamed of the man in white. She wrote, "Yusuf, my mother had a disease that the doctors said was incurable. Last night, I prayed as you taught me. I spoke to Isa. I asked for her. Today the test showed that the disease was gone. The doctor said he had never seen anything like it. I can't explain it, but I know what happened." I was in shock, and before he could respond, more messages arrived. A boy from school, who had never spoken to me, wrote, "My sister had a nightmare and saw a man in white telling her that she should look for me. She cried all night. When I showed her his photo, she said, 'It's him. It's the boy with the light.' The same day I received an email from a doctor, an adult, a confessed atheist. He had watched the video with my report and wrote, 'I'm skeptical by nature, but yesterday I had a dream. I saw Isa. He just looked at me and said, "What you call impossible, it's just the beginning." I woke up crying, and I don't know why I felt peace. For the first time in years, these messages have not stopped. They started coming from different parts of the country. People who heard my story, who prayed for the first time in years, who felt peace, who were healed, who had dreams, all with the same presence, the man in white. I didn't understand how. I wasn't looking for any miracle. I just wanted to fulfill my mission. But it felt like by speaking I was releasing something. Not from me, but from him. I was just the channel. Even so, not everyone believed. Many said it was manipulation, that I was an instrument of deception. A Christian pastor even called me a little false prophet. A radical Islamic group said I was desecrating the name of Islam. But the miracles, those could not be erased. They were happening, with or without permission. A boy who heard me live online said that his mother, who hadn't spoken in years, whispered Isa for the first time after watching the video. An elderly woman in Chicago said she felt heat in her hands and began to pray in words she never learned. People of different religions, atheists, skeptics, all being touched in ways that no one could explain. And there, finally, I understood. The message was not about religion. It was about restoration, love, unit, cure. He was acting, not for me, but through me, and no one could stop it. My father has always been a man of faith, steadfast, respected, a silent leader in our community. He knew the Quran by heart. He taught children. He helped families. He was seen as a pillar. But when I came back from the dead saying I had seen Jesus, that pillar started to crack. For weeks he barely spoke to me. He looked at me as if I had been taken over by something unclean. His faith, the one he cultivated so zealously, allowed no room for what I said. And because of that, he rejected me. Not as a son, but as a messenger. But something in him was changing. I felt it. It was in a silent dawn that everything happened. I woke up to a noise coming from the living room. When I went to see, I found my father on his knees, crying like I had never seen him before. His shoulders were shaking. The prayer rug was soaked. And when he looked up and saw me, his eyes were red, but not from anger. Delivery. He called me by name like he did when I was little. The voice failed but came out, "Yusuf, I dreamed of him. I stood still, not knowing what to say. He was standing before me with his hand outstretched, and he said, "Why do you fear love so much?" My father covered his face with his hands. He cried like a child. "I resisted, Yusuf. I thought you were lost, but I was the one who was blind. What you saw is real." I sat next to him in silence. We didn't need words. What existed between us at that moment was greater than pain, greater than doubt, greater than any religion. It was reconnection. It was healing. He looked at me again and said, "Tell me everything from the beginning. I don't want to waste any more time," and I did. For the first time, calmly, without interruptions. He listened with his eyes closed, as if he felt every word entering his heart. When I finished, he just said, "I don't know how we're going to explain this to the world, but I know you were chosen, and I will be with you, son, on your side." In that moment, something broke, and something new was born. A father did not convert to another faith. He converted to the love he had forgotten, to the God who is greater than our walls. And in the end, he understood that Isa was never the enemy. It was always the bridge. That night, my father prayed beside a son who had returned from the dead, and for the first time we prayed together with the same heart. The sun was low, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. The park was silent except for a small crowd gathered there. Some people standing, others sitting on the grass looking in my direction. There weren't many, maybe 30, 40, but his eyes, they all had something in common: thirst. I climbed onto a small wooden structure, which they used for local performances. My father was beside me, silent. My mother watched me from afar, clasping her hands tightly. Behind, cell phones were recording, some curious, others in tears. I took a deep breath. I knew that would be the last time. "My name is Yusuf," I began, "and recently too I died." The silence was absolute. I saw a place without time where love was real, where there was no pain, and I saw a man in white, with eyes that held all the tears in the world. He told me, "They have forgotten love, go back and tell me." I spoke about the light, about the visions, about the people who were touched. I spoke about miracles, pain, fear, and the peace that only comes when the truth stops being just an idea and becomes a calling. He didn't send me back to change anyone's religion. He sent me to remember that love is greater than any name, that Isa, Jesus, did not come to divide. He came to save, to restore, to remind us that we are one people, one body, one soul. I stopped. I looked at the people. Some were crying, others just closed their eyes, as if receiving something they had waited their entire lives to hear. He said, "There's still time, but not much. And he asked me to tell you this, even if no one believed it." I hugged my father. He whispered, "You did it. Smile." For the first time, I felt light, full. I looked at the sky, and before my legs gave out, I said out loud with all the strength of my heart, "Love is still here. It just needs to be remembered." And then, everything went dark. I felt my body lose balance. People ran up to me. Someone shouted my name. But I wasn't there anymore. At least not in the way they expected. They say I passed out, others swear they smile before they fall. I don't know what happened afterwards. I just know that, inside, I was at peace, because the message was delivered, and now she belongs to the world. Yusuf died, and he came back. But what matters most in this story is not what he saw, and what did he hear, and what he decided to do with it. While the world drowns in arguments, hate, divisions, and noise, a child stood up alone to say the simplest and most forgotten thing: love is still here. What if all this is true? What if, in fact, someone up there is still trying to reach us, but we've forgotten how to listen? Maybe you don't need to believe everything you hear, but maybe, just maybe, you need to stop for a moment and listen to your own heart, because sometimes the truth doesn't scream, she whispers. And only those who listen are those who have the courage to feel. If this story touched you in any way, write in the comments, "I still believe in love." Share with someone who needs a reminder that there is still hope. And if you've ever had a sign, a dream, or an experience that no one understood, now it's your turn to tell it, because the message that was from Yusuf now belongs to you. If, at any point in this video, you felt the voice of God speaking to you, if something touched your heart in a way you can't explain, so don't ignore this call. Subscribe to the channel now. You didn't get here by chance. Something bigger is guiding you. Be part of this chain of faith, love, and transformation. It is clear. Leave your like if this story moved you, awakened you, or made you reflect. This is how the message goes further. This is how love continues to spread. And now, it doesn't stop here. Click on the next video that is appearing on your screen. This next story might be just what you need to hear today.